When I started out Blindfold Chess, I was pretty horrendous. Once the game had been going for a couple moves and we were out of the opening, I was completely lost and had no idea where we were. But being able to visualize properly in your head is one of the most important skills you can have as a chess player, and it basically just helps so much with calculation that being able to do this can take you to the next level and boost your rating by more than 500 points or something. That's why I really spent a lot of time working on this skill, training this muscle, and now I'm proud to say that I still kind of suck and I can only do about 20 or 30 moves or something, but I've definitely gotten a lot better and I can flex on some of my friends by beating them blindfolded and making them cry. So anyways, let's just go right into how you should be practicing blindfold chess. Well, for me, the way that I started out when I was completely horrible at visualizing anything, I would first take a physical chessboard like this, and I would just set this down on a table and stare at it. And basically, there's a couple exercises that you can do, but one of my favorites, you visualize a queen on any square, for example. So let's just use d5, for example. You visualize a queen on d5, and then let's say there's a knight on a1, and you try to swing the knight around to every square that the queen does not cover. So let me just use my blindfold skills real quick and show you how this would work. So basically, so there's a queen on d5 and a knight on a1. The knight can't go to b3 because the queen would capture that and you would lose. So then you'd have to start by playing knight c2, and then, this is hard. So, knight c2, knight a3 because the queen doesn't go there, and then you can go knight b1, and then from b1 you can go to c3, knight c3, knight a4, knight b6, I think that works. And you pretty much get the point, but if you just stare at a chessboard and think about the movement pattern of the knight and try to really visualize the knight and the queen and the knight swinging around to all these other squares from a1 to c2 to a3 to b1, just try to think about how the knight is going and the squares that the queen captures. This is an extremely good way to get started with blindfold chess and just practice that visualization that you'll later use when you're not even looking at a chessboard. Another way you could do this is by, again, starting out, try to have a chessboard in front of you. It can be online, it can be in person. I prefer just sitting down at the table and staring at a physical chessboard because that really helps me lock in. But again, picture a knight on a1 and try to get the knight to every square on the first rank. What I mean by this is just try to swing the knight around from a1 to b1 to c1 to d1 to e1 all the way up to h1, and just try to visualize that and see how that happens. So let me give you an example. So you go knight from a1 to b3 to c2, and then you have to get back to b1. So you can go knight from c1 to a2 to c3 to b1, and from b1 you try to get to d1, so I guess you can just go knight c3, knight d1, and then from d1 you try to get to e1. You get the point. Basically just try to visualize this in your head and see the movement pattern of the knight, which is by far the trickiest piece and the hardest piece to visualize. And apart from the knight, you should start visualizing the other pieces, like the bishop, for example. So I think that this exercise works better without a chessboard, but basically, in your head, do your best. This is actually a very hard exercise, and it took me a long time to get the hang of, but visualize a bishop on a1, and then visualize a bishop on b1, and just go through that whole diagonal. So b1 to a2. So now move over one square, so now there's a bishop on c1, and try to visualize that whole small diagonal that the bishop is on. So c1, b2, and a3. So now we have this whole small bottom left corner of the board covered with the bishops, and now just move over one square again. So we have a bishop on d1 now, and just visualize it going through that small diagonal again. So from d1 to c2 to b3 to a4, and just keep doing this from e1 to d2 to c3 to... Wait, didn't I just say that? You know what, I am not like a genius. I'm not like Magnus Carlsen who can visualize 10 different games at the same time. It's still hard even for me who's been practicing for even 2 years. So just don't get too beat up if you can't do this, but this is a very good exercise to just visualize the whole board and the colored squares of each board. So you know that the A1 is a dark square, you know that the B1 to A2 diagonal are all light squares, and the C1, B2, A3 are all dark squares again. So just a very good exercise to get the hang of how the bishop moves and also the color of all the squares. And apart from these visualization exercises that require you to kind of just focus, I would also recommend listening to some kind of blindfold chess podcast on Spotify or something. I personally have one that I really like that I will link right over here. Editor, me in the future, put the image right here, boom. This is the podcast that I listen to almost every day on the car ride to school. I just put my AirPods in and just set up the chessboard in my head and just visualize all the moves. They're famous games, so it helps me learn famous games while also practicing my blindfold chess and visualization skills. And I'm gonna give you another quick tip. I'm going rapid fire here. There's this feature on chess.com called visualization training, and this is really good for people who haven't really gotten the hang of the names of each square, because at a certain level, you just kind of like know the name of every square. It's just second nature to you. If you're not completely comfortable with knowing the name of each square on the chessboard, then do the visualization trainer, switch between black and white, or you can just focus mainly on white because that's mainly what you're gonna be visualizing with. Try to click on the square that it's telling you as fast as you can, just so that you get the quick like reaction time, and you just know which square is which real quick, like it's second nature. But yeah, pretty much like I was saying this entire video, this is one of the hardest things to train in all of chess because it just takes so much effort and brain power, honestly. It's just so tiring to think about a chessboard all day, and it just takes a very long time to be comfortable. So don't worry if it takes you a couple months to just even begin to be able to visualize a couple moves deep or a couple pieces or a couple knight moves. It takes a long time, especially for beginners. So if you're a lower elo chess player, maybe do this like 5 to 10 minutes a day because you don't really have to worry about it, but it's definitely going to improve your game when it comes to calculating and visualizing further ahead. And for more intermediate to advanced players, try spending a little more time on this because it's just kind of cool playing blindfold chess, and also it's a very important skill to have. If you've enjoyed this video and want to see something similar like this in the future, make sure you subscribe, hit the like button, and leave a comment with how your blindfold chess training is going, how your chess training is going, and any more videos you want to see in the future. So thank you for watching all the way to the end, and I'll see you next time.